DJ and PK, we're joined now by David Smoak, host of 365 Sports in Waco, Texas. Smokey, good morning.
Guys, what's up? How we doing? Good morning, Utah. Good morning to a weekend of college football.
You've been on our air so much lately, I feel like you should be at our staff meetings.
I was just telling Jake that I could not wait. I didn't sleep well. I had to make sure I was prepared. I studied film. The whole full meal deal. I had a text back and forth with Kalani. Whittingham never returns my text messages. I don't understand it.
We're trying to figure Baylor out. I'm wondering if you're going to say, yeah, we're trying to figure Baylor out too. A win, a loss, a win, a loss. The wins are really convincing. All right, they're overmatched against Utah, a nationally ranked team. If they had just won that Colorado game, we'd be thinking, they're 3-1. They're pretty good. They're not great, but they're a decent team. And now it's like, why did those bums blow that game at the end? So how good is Baylor?
Well, no one knows. I think you see glimpses. Here's the thing. One of the things last year, 3-9, you didn't see glimpses. There were a couple of games in where they played well for about a half, and they couldn't put – even Utah, a game against West Virginia to close out what was a horrendous 3-9 season, maybe another game or two, but they didn't have anything. There was no oomph. You rarely saw against UCF when they had that dramatic comeback on a scoop and score and just flipped the script, and I'm sure Gus Malzahn hasn't gotten over that himself, but this year you have at least seen – instead of that start with Utah, with the touchdown, the strip sack, the blocked field goal, that's 37-9 last year. Now, there are no moral victories. I said this the other day on our show. Baylor, other than Oklahoma, I could be wrong, has more Big 12 titles than anyone else since 2010. Oklahoma has a whole bucket, like a treasure chest of them. More than Texas, more than Oklahoma State, more than TCU. But, again, not a lot. They played in one game and lost in 19 or whatever year it was. But they had 3 Big 12 titles. So this isn't one of those cute little cuddly, oh, they're pretty good again. There's a standard. They've spent millions of dollars on all the facilities they have, like many schools. But there is at least a pulse. There is a shot at you see a play that last year there was none of that. Last year there was like constant, like the punting or giving up third down conversions. Now, they don't have an identity yet. They could have had an identity if they had cleared and finished against Colorado, because I thought that was kind of a scrappy group that went in there against a team that can be up and down, as we know, in Colorado, but, make a play. But I don't know if they've forgotten how to win. It's not like it's been forever, but the last time they won a game on the road that would have been broken if they had won in Boulder would have been against Oklahoma, Texas Tech and Oklahoma back-to-back in 22. So it's been 2 years. So I think I think it's obvious they're better. Are they good enough to win this weekend? I don't know. BYU looks like they kind of got everything going really, really well. But they are better. They just now need something to pop their way, and they need to be the ones that force it. And I thought they had that done against Colorado, and, of course, they let them out. And now do you come back because you're angry and focused and all that, or are you going to feel sorry for yourself, oh, my God, we lost another game?
Sawyer Robertson's looking good at quarterback since they made the replacement. I don't know Finn's status. I heard he was on the way. What do you think's going to happen there at quarterback?
I don't think there's any question that if Dave Aranda was to make a switch at quarterback before this game or even before the game last week in Colorado, it would have been stunning. DeQuan Finn's got some of the skills and all that, but I said this maybe to you guys back before the season began, that he does tend to throw the ball to the wrong people about once or twice a game, which is a bad habit. Robertson did that last year when he came in and they blew the lead against Utah. He threw a couple of really bad throws and one that like completely flipped the script. So it's not like he's he's got a little bit of that swagger to him. I think he's given that offense a nice calmness. They look good. They didn't run the ball great, but they ran the ball okay. He's a part of that, which was a good thing. That's a new sign. Finn can do that too, but what Sawyer's been able to do, there's a few of those throws, as you guys know, that 15 to 18-yard out, especially on the edges, when you have to throw it over a linebacker to somebody that's like stepping tiptoes out of bounds for a first down. He's been able to make those throws and be able to make them consistently. And that's a huge deal. That has to be arm strength. He doesn't have a gun, but arm strength and also touch. So he's given them that. And I think there's a calmness. I think there would be an uprising. I'm not saying all of the guys like Finn, they like Sawyer, but I think the fan base would lose their minds. Not the quarterbacks or coaches care about that if they would have made any kind of change. And I don't even know yet if Finn, even though he started practicing last week, if he's really ready to go, if he had to play, maybe that's when you'd see him. And if you're Baylor, you hope that means Sawyer stays up.
Given the fact that BYU has a pick in every game this year, and you saw how pivotal they were in that Kansas State game,
man,
that the turnover, the ability to protect the ball has got to be a massive part of the equation if there's a decision to be made. I mean, if one guy's healthy and one guy isn't, the decision's made for you. But if both guys are healthy, I mean, the turnover thing, that is a big old thumb on the scale, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's a decision now. Yes, absolutely. I was sitting there looking. I've all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe because I'm getting older and I'm kind of reverting back to what a long time. I've kind of gone back to looking at a lot of the stats. I'm not an analytics guy. I'm not driven by just data, but I look at the stats. For example, the team you guys know very well in Utah. They're in the top 15 to 30 when it comes to run offense, rushing offense. They're in the top 15 to 30 in rushing defense. They're in the top 5 or 10 when it comes to turnover ratio. There's, in my opinion, you can sling it around and you can do all this. I don't think there's three better categories. Yeah, you've got to also score than being able to run the ball, stop the run, and win turnover battles. To me, that's I don't care if it's 1970 and the wishbone or 2024 and everybody's airing it out. And so the turnover thing's a huge deal to me. Always has been. I just can't stand false starts, pre-snap penalties, and turnovers are the kind of things that make me start wanting to scratch myself around my neck like I have the EBGBs. I can't stand it. Sawyer is going to throw a pick because every quarterback at some point is going to do that. Gary Bohannon, during the 2021 year, he was good as he was. And I know you guys love what he's brought to the table, even though it's Retzloff's team right now. He threw an occasional and cost him one game against TCU. So it's going to happen. But I don't think there's any question right now that Sawyer, Dave Aranda has not, he was asked a question Monday about, Sawyer. He goes, I like what he's doing. He's never come out and said he's our QB1 or whatever these things we give these titles now. But there is no question in my mind that he is the starting quarterback. He's number one on the depth chart. And Finn, as I said, started practicing a couple of weeks ago. If he was the guy, if you come back and start practicing it, guys know this, unless it's Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe back 25 years ago, if you're the quarterback, you get hurt, you're the starter, and you're the dude, and then you're back and you're healthy, you come back and start. But that's not the case here.
Shocking the way they lost that game last week, obviously. They can go one of two ways. They can spur you on, or the hangover effect is to the negative. What do you see?
We're not able to get much, obviously, during practice. And whenever they have a media availability, it's right in the middle of when we're wrapping up our show on 365 Sports. What I've been told is that they've had a really crisp practice. I'm sure not only do you lose that game and you feel like you ran into a fire truck, then it's a game that you don't get home till, 3, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever it might be. And then you kind of want to sleep in like that back in the days when you guys, back in college when you're out late. And then on top of that, the hangover of the loss, Sunday was not easy at all. This is when you must have some internal leadership. They seem to have some guys that do that. There was even a player that made the comment, a younger player made the comment, we are not going to allow this to lead to anything else because of tonight. We are not going to do that. And that's hard. It's easy to say it. It's hard then to follow up and do it. So it does seem like they have some pretty good internal leadership, which last year, I don't know, with all due respect to some of those guys that were there last year who are internal leaderships this year, I don't think they had anybody that could really just like, that's it. We're done. We're going to move forward with this. I think that was once the ice started melting, they weren't able to put it back on top of the mountain. I think that they have a better team leadership. They're playing a team that's good. I mean, you guys know this, and you haven't been a part of the Big 12 for that long. It's been like just a couple of 3 years. But this league, year in and year out, you would have those at the top. But there's always a team or two. West Virginia last year, TCU in 22, Baylor in 21, coming off of 2-7, that is picked way low, really down far. And it's just amazing how you get some kind of a nice little, stuff going. And there's a team, and I would love to see if it's BYU, that all of a sudden just completely turns the tables on who they were and who they are. And it's every year there is someone that does that, and I think that's pretty special. And it looks like Kalani's got a pretty good team.
They've really been preaching at BYU, protect the ball. You can't have the turnovers. They got away with turnovers in the win at SMU, but it's not the path, and Kalani's just cracked on it in multiple media availabilities. A-Rod, the offensive coordinator, has mentioned it as well. And they played a good game from that perspective as part of that big win against Kansas State. I look at Baylor. They forced 4 turnovers in the 2 victories. They don't have a takeaway in the losses. So should we really just Saturday keep an eye on BYU's ability to protect the ball? Because if they do, the history would suggest they are set up great.
Yeah, no, you're right. You think about when you were saying that, because I actually went to Lincoln to go watch Nebraska at home for the first time. I'm a lifelong fan. People can boo me for that. That's fine. They haven't been good in a long time. But with Matt Rule there, former Baylor coach, we went. They played on a Friday night. I normally do high school football, so the game I did was a Thursday. Flew into Omaha. Enjoyed the weekend despite the loss. So I didn't get to watch like the full game, like start to finish. I was able to kind of monitor it on my as I was driving down from the airport in Dallas to Waco. But when you said that, I'm like, that was a game that like it seemed like they did have a couple of turnovers, and the reason why, and I had to catch myself, they had the long punt return. And they had the 100-yard kickoff return. And to me, those are like turnovers. But you're right. They did not force turnovers in that game. And, of course, Utah would rather lose a pinky than ever turn the football over, their style. And so I didn't think that way. So you protect the football, turnover ratios, turnover margin. And Baylor, I think, tomorrow will need to force Retzloff a little bit out of a comfort zone. And they had 8 sacks against Colorado, but let's be honest, a lot of people have gotten to Shedeur and created havoc, and he sometimes gets loose, and sometimes, he's going to, like against Nebraska, threw that deadly pick 6 early in the game. But they give up a lot of sacks, and I think that's what's going to be fun to watch them against UCF, against that UCF run game. But if Baylor gets a turnover or 2, obviously this thing could go down to the wire. If they don't, and BYU just does what they've done, that I expect the Cougars to probably end up going to 5-0.
That is what Cougar fans wanted to hear right there, 5-0. Give the people what they want, Smokey. Well done.
Think about that, 5-0. They had the pretty good start last year, and everything kind of fell apart like Baylor did in 22. 5-0. I mean, that and who they are at home, which is just like walking into a Halloween haunted house because of that, not in a negative way, but how great that atmosphere is. Kansas State will not get over that feeling for a long time, even if they get back on a roll. And, of course, they got almost a elimination game against Oklahoma State this weekend. That's a team at Kansas State that does not panic. That's a team in Kansas State that does not throw up on itself. And they did all of that. And a lot of it has to do with who BYU is as a football team, but that unbelievable crowd and that atmosphere in a night game is just unbelievable. And so that's why 5-0, and they still have games to play at home. My goodness, that does seem like it sets them up in a great way.
David Smoak, host of 365 Sports in Waco, Texas, joining us here on The Zone. Thanks a lot, Smokey.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
DJ and PK, we're talking hockey. Utah Hockey Club with Cole Bagley coming up at 9 o'clock right here on The Zone.